Okay, good morning again, distinguished academicians and my fellow researchers. My name is Tolulope Odunsi, and I'm here to present my research thesis, which is titled Digital Transformation in the Financial Services Sector, Implications for Sustainable Development in Nigeria. So I'm going to share my outline. I'm going to discuss about digital transformation in brief, and I'm going to talk about some framework that is helping me, guiding me in my research, and then I'll look at some of my research questions, and then my research objectives, and then talk about my research methodology. All right, so talking about digital transformation, of course, I'm sure you have heard this phenomenon. It's a common phenomenon, and it's an emerging, area of research all over, even globally. I mean, and it's quite a novel, phenomenon that is emerging over time. New ideas, new concepts are coming up around this phenomenon, and it's actually attracting significant interest across the academia and industry. I mean, and you see a lot of literature talking about digital transformation, but the challenge is there's so many definitions about digital transformation. There's so many, so we don't really know what does it actually mean. What's the nature of this transformation across organizations? So you see that industries and companies are actually grappling with the meaning of digital transformation, even though they are trying to transform their organization digitally, but the true meaning of what it is still a kind of a mystery. So it's an emerging research area. All right, so I'm actually interested in that. So, and it's even more evident in the financial services sector, because you now have a lot of fintech companies around developing fintech products and solutions, even globally, especially even in Africa, especially in Nigeria now. You have so many fintech companies that are coming up with different solutions, almost every day. And this is actually having quite an impact in the financial service sector. So that is an area of concern, and I actually want to look, deeper into that area. All right. So I'm going to talk about a few of my framework. Okay, so which is one of them. This framework is just to help us understand what digital transformation is all about. Okay, so these three authors, they actually looked at digital transformation in the public sector administration in Europe. They looked at about 9 countries in Europe, and they come up with this framework. And the framework is essentially saying that there are about 4 essential components or dimensions of that digital transformation. So you look at the reasons for transformation, which they said it could be external pressure or internal pressure, and they looked at some of the transformational objects. I mean, objects that could be transformed in an organization, or in this instance, the public sector domain. And they come up with artifacts, processes, and the bureaucratic structure and organization items that can be transformed in that space. And they looked at the process of transformation, which they identify as digitalization, relationships, competencies, and mindset. And then they also look at the value of transformation. So that's the value that you can get from digitally transforming your organization. So they come up with the short-term and long outcomes, and then they look at the impact of that value. So that is one framework. And the other framework I want to talk about is the other framework that it tries to unify every other framework around digital transformation. So these authors, they looked at 134 journals, academic journals, and they tried to do a kind of systematic literature review, and they come up with this framework. And the framework is essentially saying that digital transformation is a fundamental change, of any entity, which could be an organization, could be a business network, could be in an industry, or could be a society at large, which is enabled by innovative use of digital technology. So they're kind of defining it, but they're also trying to tell us the elements of digital transformation. Okay, so which could be enabled by of digital technology, which could be AI, blockchain, cloud computing, analytics, AI, IoT, and all that. And then they also said that it could be accompanied by strategic leverage of these resources, human resources and capabilities as well. And then the outcomes of this will now be, number one, could be economic-driven outcomes, which could be process automation, efficiency and productivity, could be improvement and or cost reduction, Could be customer experience optimization. That is, you have a customer experience that is enriched, that that will help you to generate more revenue as a company. So they also look at capability-driven outcome, which could be business model innovation and other things under that box. So, but in essence, it's actually providing value, to the stakeholders. Stakeholders in this case, they define theirs as customers, employees, and partners. So it could be providing value, or it could be reinforcing a particular value, for that organization. All right. So those are just the two frameworks I like to highlight because of time. Okay. So I'll talk about my research questions. So based on this, initial contest, looking at the literature, I came up with these research questions supported by my supervisors, and then I have two research questions which I tend to look at. Number one is, how is digital transformation operationalized through fintech in the financial services sector in Nigeria? Now, mind you, I'm looking at fintech. What happens to fintech? What digital transformation happens to fintech specifically? I'm not looking at the entire digital technologies, but just fintech technologies. What is the impact of this technology in the financial service sector in Nigeria? The other question is, what are the implications of digital transformation of financial service for sustainable development in Nigeria? Now, this sustainable development is a very common, concept as well, even in DMU and across the world globally. So I want to look at, okay, it's fine, digital transformation. How does it affect the society at large? What is the impact of it? How does it make life better? Because that should be the essence anyway. That should be the ultimate. It's to transform society. So I'm interested in that. So I want to look at that question and see if how I can get answers to those questions. And in actually doing this research, I've come up with 3 objectives. Number one is to explore digital transformation now, but this time in the financial service sector in Nigeria. So I want to look at how the practitioners, experts in that field, how did they construe the meaning of digital transformation? What are the elements, the dimensions they ascribe to digital transformation? Okay, that's number one. The second objective is to also develop a theoretical framework. So I'm going to come with framework, like the one I showed you earlier. So I'm going to develop a framework based on my findings from that sector. And in doing that, I can come up, I don't know, because I can come with a compound nomenclature and literature. Because so far, to the best of my knowledge, I have not come across a compound word defined as fintech transformation. What I've seen is they are just defining it individually. There's no compound nomenclature yet. So I may come up with that definition, which is essentially saying that what are the digital that happen through fintech. And then the last question would be to evaluate those what I've done by research, and then see the implications, how it affects sustainable development in Nigeria. All right. So my last slide, because of time, is my research methodology. Okay. So my philosophical underpinning for this research is interpretivism. Of course, that is just to help me to understand how the views and perspective of the different experts in this industry, how did they define digital transformation in their practices, how do they understand it, and then I'll be using the qualitative approach as well to kind of extract their subjective meanings, and then I'll be looking at the strategy will be the building my theory and grounding it in based on the data received from the participants as well. And I'll be looking at using structured, unstructured and semi-structured interviews to actually collect my data. Thank you for listening. Questions?
Is there any questions?
I'll ask a question. Is digital transformation new?
Sorry?
Is digital transformation new?
Yeah, it's an emerging concept. It's not exactly new, but it's emerging. It's coming up. Different concepts are coming up every day. I forgot to mention that earlier in my discourse. There are so much confusion even in literature right now. You have different terminologies that are confusing. You have digitization, you have digitalization. So they're just interchanging it, but there are differences actually. So this I also want to also make sure I expatiate and actually define what it actually means, especially in the context in where I'm looking at it in Nigeria.
So what I'm trying to get at is, did it exist pre-COVID?
Yeah.
COVID. So yes. I think with your PhD, you need to be careful about the evolution of digital transformation and what it was and why suddenly it's spiking up
Okay.
when you do your data collection, because you're talking, you've got the subjective meanings there, that indeed it's how you're going to transform all that into objective meanings and define that, what this information means now.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. You've got to be a bit careful when you say the subjective meanings, because then you've got threshold concepts and how people perceive things depending on their cultural background, educational learning and all that. So.
Okay, thank you very much for that input.
Any other questions?
Question or comments or suggestions to help me in my research? I'll be appreciated.
From online participants? Okay, yeah.
I'll ask the question, which is straight to the supervisor, but we debate this concept about sustainable development goals, and there are quite a few, and the kind of difference we have here is whether to look at specific sustainable development goals or the whole group of goals when you're looking at specifically FinTech. So that's a sort of like comment / question to kind of get people's perspectives on how to actually go about focusing the studies. Sorry to put you out there.
Thank you.
It's here to disagree.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.